Right, I'd like to call to order the Finance Committee meeting at 10:51, and I'll look for confirmation of the minutes, and I'll ask Ms. Bodenstein to move. Any errors or omissions? All in favor? That carries. We have a presentation. Jeff, you're all set up?
Yes, absolutely, Chair.
Way you go.
Okay, thank you very much and good morning to the committee. Today's presentation is going to be an overview of the 2025 budget, operating budget, and our process to date. And I'm sorry, the advanced slide is not working. Sorry, I'm going to just seek some technical assistance. 1 second.
The clicker should work.
Yeah, I agree it should work. Two minutes. Much. Thank you, Jacqueline, for the assist. So today's presentation is not to preempt, but many of the slides are sharing with what you'll see on May 30th. So my focus won't be necessarily explaining what the chief will be explaining on May 30th, but I want to talk about the financial implications of the various crime trends and workloads that we're seeing, increasing crime trends, increasing workload that we're seeing. We'll briefly touch on the new Community Safety Policing Act, several of our modernization initiatives, talk about social trends, and then over to staffing. So staffing takes a bit of explanation. We changed the question this year. Typically, what will go is the first question when we talk about staffing. We eliminated that question and started with, what do you need? So we've received over 300 requests for staff. And what you'll be seeing here is this split over 2 years, a 2-year staffing plan, 2025 and 2026. Totaling 304 requests. I want to just emphasize, this is the initial conversation on staffing. This is in no way our final cut at this. And finally, a financial update. The costs of what I've just explained are very high. So I want to explain how that looks to the outlook that the Treasury gave us back in April. So what you're seeing here today
Excuse me, Jeff, just before,
Yep.
this is open to the public, okay? This is a public meeting. It's not a in-camera one. Next one, private, just so everyone knows, we're in a public forum, okay? Just so, all these slides are public, so it's not an issue, okay? Sorry, Jeff.
Thank you very much, Chair. And what you're seeing here is 2024 year-to-date crime trends. So this is not the same data set that you saw this morning from Steve Pinto. As you can see, about half of the crime trends are going up, half are coming down. On the down list, I just wanted to show you bottom row, second from the right, weapons, violations, firearms is about flat. It's about flat to what Steve was presenting so far through May. I also wanted to point out what's going up, and this is the top row on the right-hand side, break and enter residential and commercial, significant increases from previous years. These are very labor-intensive type crimes to investigate. But I also want to give some good news on theft of motor vehicle, which is the middle row, far right, a 28% decline from this time last year, and give you a briefing on the cost to investigate auto theft. So in 2023, we estimate that 8.6 million was spent on investigating auto thefts. This consists of 4.1 million for district criminal investigation. So this is the first call in for investigation. There's $2.3 million spent last year on ARC auto cargo theft. This is our specialty unit within investigative branch. And that includes an additional $1.8 million in frontline costs. So this is your initial call out to investigate the crime. And $0.8 million was spent on Project Auto Guard, which was our local initiative on auto theft. In 2023, as Steve mentioned this morning, there was 3,951 vehicles stolen, making our average cost per vehicle stolen $2,180. So it costs over just under $2,200 to investigate an auto theft. Police reported crime severity index. This will be updated in June, so you'll By September, you'll be seeing a new slide here with 2023 data added. The dark blue line in the middle is the crime severity index. It's made up of several factors. You can see the non-violent crime, which is the light blue section, being relatively flat with bottoming out in 2014. But the real trend here is the violent crime severity index. And as you can see, it's been on an upward trend since 2014. We are expecting an additional increase in 2023. And this is the chart that many of our peer comparators around Ontario are looking at. The chiefs are trying to plan out where's the ... if this trend continues, and where does our organization have to get to from a staffing perspective to address this challenge. I also want to speak briefly on the Community Safety and Policing Act. And we've already touched on this on March 27th. But the top line item, downloading of discipline-related costs for the Ontario Police Arbitration Adjudication System. This is the new cost to boards over 4 years from the province as a result of the CSPA. As an addendum to this, I'll say that Jason Fraser has said we're going to have more away games. So what he's talking about is conflict of interest, and there'll be more of our professional standards facing other services, more away games than we currently do. And you'll see that in our staffing ask. So that's the major item, that top item. I'll just touch on a couple of other things in 2025. You'll also see the cost of new equipment. This is active shooter equipment. I won't list everything out. It's on the slide, second row. But this is active shooter equipment that we'll be putting in all frontline cars. And I'll skip down to the responsibility for boards to provide court security, which is the second from the bottom one. And this has also attracted a staffing request for 2025. And it's about the level of service around staffing. It's the number of locations. And we are currently planning on a transition over to 17-150, which some of those courts are going to be used for provincial purposes going forward, and then needing court security. And finally, the section 220, which is the last row, the membership and police associations for key civilian senior positions, which I know the board is well attuned to. Modernization initiatives, and there are many going on at York Regional Police. I've put up 4 on the slide here. I'll start with the accommodations project, and this is my peer executive director, Vanessa Aguiar, who's leading an accommodations project. And this is about improving the processes for members who are ill, the practices and the organizational culture, reducing the stigma both internally and to the member returning to work. And this has potentially a significant financial impact, and I'll explain it in a moment. But I'll quickly move over to the automatic license plate recognition. This is the technology in the cars that's notifying officers. That's been significantly successful. So it's resulted in 77% increase in the apprehension of drivers under suspension. So this is a big win, again, partially funded from the province. You might remember a grant program for just around $700,000 to facilitate its purchase. People systems, the board has invested for the last several years. We've chosen SAP SuccessFactors, and we're integrating that now into our HR and IT ecosystem over the next few years. You'll see a cost of this in the upcoming 2025 capital requests. And finally, the wellness strategy evaluation. And the number of medical leaves and cost to YRP are fairly significant. In 2023, there were 175 members on leave at a cost of about $19.5 million. So this consists of $2.9 million for the cost of the Wellness Bureau. We have just under 100 members on WSIB leave at a cost of $9.7 million. 64 members are on long-term disability leave costing $4.2 million. And 19 members are on long-term injury leave costing $2.7 million annually or thereabouts. We're evaluating the wellness strategy. So Dr. Hanley has brought to you 2 5-year plans for wellness strategies. And we're planning on an evaluation in 2025 to overview how this all rolls out. Dr. Hanley has a very good analogy that I'll share with the board. I want to attribute it to Dr. Hanley. This is like cancer screening. So as we put more money into our wellness strategies, we in fact had an increase in wellness leaves. That's the same as cancer screening, that you'll see more cancer if you screen for more. So I just wanted to kind of prep you with that. But we do want to hire in a firm to help us with the evaluation of the program, and that will help inform the next 5-year wellness strategy. And talking a little bit about the Israel-Hamas conflict, the overall costs, and this is not an operational briefing, you've received several from the chief through board meetings, but the Israeli-Hamas conflict in 2023 cost $1.8 million, and it included a number of in-region stepped-up dedicated patrols. This is where the majority of the cost went, additional patrol officers on the streets. It included a transfer of what was going on with diversity, equity, and inclusion, which became focused on the issue throughout the fall. Major incident support center was stood up, as well as investigations and the management of overhead estimates rounds out the $1.8 million. As an example, our March 7th outing, our protest here in York Region, between pro-Palestinian and counter-protesters had a cost of about $78,000 just for one day of protests. And for 2025, we're also adding officers in our hate crimes in our DEI section. This is continues to be a major concern for York Regional Police going forward. The economic conditions on crime in this consolidation of homelessness, addiction, and mental health issues has resulted in a new initiative that's ongoing now here in 2024 that we're also looking to step up in 2025 for costs. And this is the creation of a rapid response table. This is a collaboration and a partnership between York Region and the CHS, Community Health Services, and York Regional Police. And on March 19th, the senior management team and the executive leadership teams met to talk about a results-oriented process where we can help working together for some options to support mental health, to help the ongoing issue of homelessness and encampments. Some options were discussed, including potentially stepping up a regionally operated location offering mental health and homelessness supports. This would include navigation of resources and supports in person. It would include paramedicine, food, other shelter connections, transportation, that kind of services. And it would also potentially step up how York Region attaches its outreach workers to support community. And this is a change in the hours and how to do this beyond 7 p.m. So as we move over to staffing, again, I'll caveat the staffing requests first with explaining how all of these charts work. So this is by branch. And if you're starting on the far left top, the pre-2023 staffing in the executive and board was 66 staff members. You can see in 2023 and 2024, we added 15 members. And this is to start up our corporate communications and media relations group, our MARCOM. It's to establish the professionalism and leadership office. There was a legal counsel to support training that the board has added already, as well as officers to address professional standards. And as you can see in the 2025 column and the 2026 outlook column, there's a significant increase to the executive and board staffing. It's mostly executive, and that would result if all of this was approved, and it would be a doubling of staff in 2026. It would end at 130 staff. So again, what we're developing for 2025 and 2026 is a justification package showing staffing that would increase projects and continuous improvements. And this is Steve Pinto's team that you met this morning. It would include a big change to marketing and communications, as well as enhancements to our professionalism, leadership, and inclusive office. I don't want to, there's just not enough room for everything, but it would include additional officers for professional standards, and this is to address the away games. The operations branch staffing requests, again, starting on the far left, it started at about 1,000 officers. Through 4 years, the intent is to grow frontline staffing to 1,116 members. So the board has already invested fairly heavily into frontline staffing patrol. We do this every year, and we're looking at always meeting the demands of the community or meet the growth of the community. The board has also enhanced community support officers, and this started at 4 district. This is the civilian police professionals assisting frontline officers. as well as the board's already addressed supervision within the community-oriented response. Our workload data is pointing us towards additional patrol cars in sectors 12, 13, and 45. And this requires 4 to 5 officers per car to get the 24/7, 365 service that we're expecting. So it's a large increase. It's also asking for additional completion of the community support officers, the civilian police professionals at 1 and 2 districts, as well as region-wide increases to community-oriented response. And this is just around the public events, the support for the municipalities that's needed. Over to the staffing for the support branch. As you can see, 18 members have been added in the first initial 2 years. This is areas like real-time operations where staff sergeants were added. The board has continuously been investing in mental health support teams, as well as improving communications to address any staffing shortages there. And on the 2025 and 2026 side of things, again, a significant lift that would improve hate crime investigations, add additional teams to mental health support. It would sustain our bail officer pilot project, as well as change how pilots and maintenance works for AR support. Again, we would be looking at 669 total members if this plan were approved. Our investigations branch staffing, again, we're starting at 428. We've added 16 positions over the last 2 years, mostly in our holdup capacity. But again, our holdup capacity needs to improve. This is the group that investigates robberies, home invasions, carjackings, and that's a key increase that's going forward in 2025 and 2026. But this group, this is effectively to head off that violent crime increase that we saw on a previous slide. So it's a large lift from 428 members to 529 if the 4-year staffing was completely implemented. Over on the administrative branch, the board has approved 3 positions through the first 2 years. They're listed on the slides there, but would look at 61 positions over the next 2 years. And I don't want to underestimate the need for support positions to help when the organization is growing. Support is needed, and this lift in people is needed to facilitate the hiring, training, and onboarding is a lot of the increase. Wellness positions that you'll see shortly, as well as technology, fleet, and facility positions. So when I say shortly, the intent here is to receive some feedback on the staffing requests, and then follow that up with a justification package that we would normally give the board. Usually in a private session is where that justification package goes, so that we can show you the full package of information that's required. I'll work with Anitra on that document and which session it should go in. Over to the financial pieces, the top portion of this chart was provided by the treasurer in April. It's the budget directions and it's based upon what we outlooked in 2025 and 2026 from last year's budget. You can see it's about 4% in each of the 2 years, adding 46 positions in each of the 2 years. What I've showed you today could increase the cost as much as 7 to 7.7% in 2025, 7.3%, but it's got a major asterisk on how we get that high. And again, what I've shown you is 154 positions total in 2025 and 150 positions in 2026, a 2-year staffing plan with costs of about $14.6 million above what was outlooked in each of the 2 years. I'll explain the asterisk in the section in a moment here, but how it's funded really changes the cost. So we've provided a very conservative funding formula. The funding itself is subject to review and comments from Treasurer Marabella's group. We've chosen to fund a portion of the staffing through our traditional gapping process, and gapping matches the money with when the cash is needed. The other portion, we've pushed the full costs through. There's a way to do this through reserve contributions, and that's why we've got to the $14.6 million. The idea then is to take this conversation back to Treasurer Marabella and her team to review how it could be funded. If we were to go the traditional gapping route for all of the positions, that significantly lowers the percentages and lowers the dollars that you're seeing on the slide today. So that's one option that we would want to review, but it's premature for me to really advise on what their plans would be to the staffing requests. By reducing it, we're showing it front loaded, if you want to call it this. And by reducing it, it pushes the cost into the future year, including onto the next council. So there are pros and cons to this that we have to discuss further. And with that, I'm available to take any questions that you might have around whether it's the finances, the staffing, or what we're seeing from an environment perspective.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Any questions? Mr. Pritchard.
Just go back to comments raised earlier about the expansion and dynamics of change in the region. So we're looking at the next number of years, and this hits me every time I drive down to the university. We're looking at probably 200 new towers coming into the Vaughan area. That's a staggering number of people. And what that begs is, again, anticipation of additional staffing needs, but it's also training needs because, again, it's not my expertise, but it's a different type of policing in the vertical city than it is in the horizontal city. And I don't know if that requires a new training program. I don't know what additional equipment is required. I know that there's a technical question that was raised a number of months ago about communications within the caves, within the towers, whether police officers can effectively communicate. But the reality is that that dynamic is under enormous pressure due to immigration issues that affect the Greater Toronto Area. And the reality of the fact that those towers are planned, they are coming online, and they significantly change both the needs and the dynamics of policing. And is that anticipated in the numbers that you put up for 2024, 25, 26?
I think I'll address the last part of and then hand it over to the chief to talk about vertical policing. So yes, the increases are reflected. Again, we're showing you a 2-year plan to set us up for the next 4 years. So it absolutely includes the expansion into whether it's the Vaughan Metropolitan Center area or other high intensity nodes. So yes, the staffing plan does contemplate those items. I'll swing it to the chief because I know that he's got points for May 30th around vertical policing.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Chair, through you. I guess my point on this I want to highlight is Jeff touched on it. You know, for many, many years, as we planned out staffing at YRP, we've planned it out on an incremental basis, right? And not intentionally, but not enough attention was given to, and I'll call it back office staff, but I don't want to disparage anybody with that term. But the reality is, it's all about the frontline and investigations. But if we don't take care of the rest of the folks who play this support role, we will continue to be right in the space we were last year with people saying not be so conservative about, you know, we're trying to be still as efficient as we can, but we have to plan for the future. The comment I want to make about vertical policing is, you know, if you look in Vaughan right now, it looks like Mississauga, right? The planning that's going on right across just on the Vaughan side, and I know the plans are also permeating into Markham and Richmond Hill, we are going to see, it's going to look like one big city from Vaughan right across, right? If we don't plan an uplift for that now, we won't incrementally catch up. We are seeing that violent crime trend continue now, not because we didn't plan effectively before, but who knew where things were going to be. Right now, where we want to be is in a place where we can provide it. I've been terming this a whole systems approach to staffing, right? And that means we have to look at the whole gambit of staffing across the board. And that's why we went out to the whole organization to say, give us your wish list because we need to know what's coming. How do we plan for it? And where do we need staffing to be as efficient and effective so the frontline can do the work they need to do. The investigation can take it from there. And then at the same time, we approve 154 positions. There's recruiting staff required, training staff required, staff required in communications, community support. The whole thing has to be looked at as one. And so I think my comments around vertical policing is it comes with all kinds of challenges. You did talk about communications. We're planning for that, talking about repeaters in buildings, talking about getting in at the front end of planning with municipalities through crime prevention, with crime prevention officers to effectively plan what do buildings need to be, we need to look like, what needs to be incorporated before the building's built, as opposed to after the fact, right? So a lot of that has to be part of this, and that's part of the discussion with regional council as well, is consider the police in the planning perspective at the front end of it, right? Before we end up with 20 skyscrapers, and we haven't thought about, you know, the planning of it, the architecture of it, what it should look like from a crime prevention perspective, because that can have a significant impact on community safety and well-being. So, and then technology is at the forefront of everything we're doing as it comes to vertical policing, right? We need to provide seamless opportunities for people to connect with police, connect with our communication center, and traditional ways of policing have to be considered the old school way of doing things. And that's where we need to get to, but we need to do it with staffing. And staffing has to be there, or we can, you know, I'm building a professionalism office, and if we were to incrementally build that office, it would take me 5 years to build the office. I can't wait 5 years, right? The organization can't wait 5 years because we have, you know, we have things happening in the workplace that we can plan for now and be better prepared to deal with. Marketing and communications. I've heard from all of you, I've heard from every municipality in the last 4 years about how much better we need to be at communicating. Well, you need people to do that, right? And you can't just change the program and not add the staffing to benefit it. So whole system approach to staffing is what we're looking at, and it's, you know, it touches on why we need to front end load this and get to where we need to be. Sorry, that's it from my perspective.
Mr. Pertro. Sorry. Yeah, Mr. Pertro, he can finish up.
There's a hidden dynamic here. The Canadian economy as a whole has trends that indicate that the entire development of regions like York is changing. The idea of single family homes is really becoming more and more remote for most people. There's young people that are moving, and the correlation between being young and the type of home that you're going to move into, again, the vertical city principally, is directly correlated to crime rates, because there is a 1-to-1 correlation between age and crime rates. So it's not only the number of people that create density in the vertical city, it's who they are and what they do and how they behave. And, you know, things like drug addiction and various other difficulties that are associated with age groups are going to be uniquely concentrated. And again, my concern is not that you don't have a planning model, quite the contrary. I think you're doing a remarkable job. My concern is the issue that you stated, Chief, that will it be enough soon enough to accommodate what is going to really expand very, very quickly? And that's at all level. That's not just the officers supporting the building. That's the staff supporting the officers, as you said, the investigators, the vehicles, the communications equipment. I think that this is coming at us far more rapidly than most communities are prepared for, and particularly in this region, because it's not Toronto. And as we all know, people are being forced out of Toronto. So where do they want to be? They want to be close to the center or the core, but they're not going to be able to afford that. That's just particularly, again, for young people. And I hear this a lot from students who are looking at me saying, we're never going to buy a house. No, probably not, statistically. So again, where does that put them? That puts them in the vertical city. And again, huge demand, rapid increase in supply, and a totally different dynamic than policing in, with great respect, King City, which is a very different kind of community than the core concentration in Vaughan. And again, my concern is, will it be enough soon enough to meet the kinds of challenges that are going to be dumped in your lap, Chief? And I'm empathetic here, because the howling and the screaming will increase exponentially if those needs are not met. But do these plans, and this is really a question to you, do these plans anticipate, again, not only the numbers, the volume, the support costs, and the nature of the community that is going in there, and the correlation that follows that community, increased crime?
Thank you, through you, Chair. There's a lot to the question, and I'll start from a finance committee piece. I'm not a criminologist, and you've covered a lot of what criminologists look at. I think from our perspective, the age crime prone cohort is an important one that you touched on. This one-to-one correlation, and it has fluctuated a little bit, but it's very real, and that's the trend that needs to be addressed. It's one of the key factors of what you said. On May 30th, the chief is going to talk about a dozen different items related to vertical policing. I'm just going to boil it down to one to simplify it for today's conversation, which is around response times. And when Vaughan Metropolitan Center was built, we had conversations with the developers at the time to talk about how we could best police the area. They were concerned about crime right from the initial buildings being built. What we've looked at emergency response time, we're in around between 7 and 8 million minutes for frontline response into these vertical towers. That's the key metric that we're looking at to ensure that we're not lowering our level of service to those residents. You've heard a neighbor to the south has talked about 22 and 22 minutes for frontline response time. And there's going to be a few metrics. I'm pointing at one. There's going to be things like transit safety. We've seen in other jurisdictions where transit safety has been impacted around these high density nodes. You're going to see things around training for our vertical policing that will come up. Not all of it is known, but I will say a majority of what you've just suggested is included in this next 2-year staffing plan. And it's there to set us up for future success, keeping those response rate low.
Thank you, Walter. Ms. McCullough, and then I'll come to Mr. Chairman there. Yep, sure.
Thank you. It's been through you chairs. So I see this as a huge paradigm shift, which actually requires a lot more than what we're doing right now. So it goes from community planning, which is council again, right? Council, mayors, everyone getting together. And then after that, we could look at the dollars that we require to police that particular kind of density. And another question would be, I know that Saskatchewan uses the community support officers. Do we have any of those now?
Yeah, any one of us can take it. Yeah, we do. We have some. We don't have enough. We just hired these community support officers last year. We piloted it with 4 and we hired another additional 8. But our plan is to double that because we know the impact that's having at the front line. In my platoon visits with Cecile and the other deputies, we heard loud and clear that whatever you do, do not remove these community support officers because they play a real key role for us at the front line because they take off the duties, they take away duties that a frontline officer is not having to respond to, and they can do it at a much, at a lower cost. So we want to double that up so we can have, eventually see a couple of community support officers per shift across the region because we know we don't have the financial impact of it yet, but we can say, at least I can say anyways, the impact from an efficiency standpoint and the support to the front line has been significant. So we do have them. We're planning for more. It's in the plan when we get to the staffing final.
So do you see this make a great impact on say homelessness, addictions? They can do that easily. They're not a threat to the individuals with whom they interact.
Depends on what you're asking them to do. Their job is not primary response to individuals that are in crisis. That's not their job. But if you're talking about interacting with people who might be in encampments, of which we have a high number of them right now, yes, they can interact with folks like that. They can connect them to services, but it's all part of the bigger plan with the region that's already ongoing through Deputy McCloskey's side. working on what does that look like, that intersectionality of homelessness, addiction, and mental health, right? Can they support it? For sure.
Okay. And so the last question with the support officers, are they in particular vehicles and the cost of those vehicles? And what powers do they actually have? Because I don't really know here in this area, what powers do they have?
Yeah, so they're special constables.
Okay.
So they do have specific, in the new act, there's specifics around what they should wear. We're trying to navigate an issue with the ministry right now as to a purple stripe on their pants, which is, we're not sure where that came from, but reality is there are some guidelines around what they should wear. They have to have special constables identified. They have vehicles that have special constable written on them. As far as the cost of the vehicles, Jeff, that's over to you, but
Thank you, Chief. And it's approximately $85,000 for a fully marked frontline patrol vehicle currently, and that's what they utilize.
and as far as their powers go, they have special constable powers, no different than our court officers. They can make, depending on what they're dealing with, they can make like a citizen's powers of arrest, but they are considered, a constable under the act. It's a special constable. So not the full duties of a frontline officer, but, a bit of a blend between being a civilian person in the community and what a first frontline officer would be doing. It would be somewhere in the middle there. I don't have all the duties specified, but they do have powers, special constable, and they're sworn in as, and you appoint them, right?
Thanks. Thanks, Chair.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'll come back.
Yeah, as we all know, you can see the difference in the policing now that it was 5 years ago and how things are working. The wars don't help us over abroad, but this reality. So I put my other hat on, my chairman's hat of the region. That's a 1% increase in taxes, approximately. 1% does give us about 13 million going forward. So the chief and I did talk this morning. I'd like him to explain a little bit to you because it's a good news story. Because I asked, can you get the recruits? I'll be honest with you. I think there's a level of comfort even at this table, but I think there's a level of comfort, not with all, but with the majority of council, which I'm hoping for. We'll hear more about it next week, but as it comes to the budget time, September, October, to go forward with the plan. But I have to say, I think the board and council will want to see results. We can't just put boots on the ground. We need to see results. Now, I now know they'll say, well, there's a lot of crime out there. Yes, there is, but we need to see results so that public will come back and say, I feel better now in 2026 than I did in 2024. But let's be honest, even if if this budget goes through, it's not going to happen overnight. He's got 154 in 2025. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. And then there's 150 in 2026. So it's 300 new recruits over 2 years. And that's not a small undertaking going forward because of the training that we go through. You just can't all of a sudden put them in a car and say, go ahead. There's some massive training that's got to be done. So it might even go so far I just speaking out loud a little bit, I think you almost need to start now. As soon as we get through, you almost start the planning process. But I think the chief explained to me, it's a good news story on the recruits, because I was surprised because I'm hearing different stories from around. They're not getting people signed up, but chief.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman, and through you, Chair. So the good news story is, and Deputy Hammond, I'll get her to weigh in here at the back end of this conversation as well, because it's important, is that we've already have over 500 applications to YRP in the first quarter of 2024. That's a good news story because last year we didn't have as many. So we are seeing a big uptick in that. We have created an outreach team, and that outreach team is doing some significant work. There are some plans in place to do our recruiting a little bit differently. We won't get into the specifics of that because we have to review the business case, but I think it's going to have a significant impact on our ability to recruit, both on the police professional side and the sworn side. One thing I just wanted to clarify too, as well, Chair, that 154 and 150 isn't just sworn officers. It's a blend of sworn and our police professional. But I would say, think of it as a ratio of somewhere around 2/3 to 1/3 or somewhere around that. Cecile and I have been adamant to our training staff. You would have seen those that were at the last recruit ceremony. We had 29 or 30 recruits. Our plan for the next, and we already had 15 signed off at that point for the next class. Our plan, and we've put the foot to the pedal, is get 40 for the next class and continue with 40 and 40. If, as you may recall, I mentioned before, the ministry has added a recruit class, an additional recruit class to Ontario Police College every year. So now there's 4 intakes. So 4 intakes times 40 is 160 people. I'm pretty confident if we keep working in the way we are, we modify our recruiting strategy, we will be able to address this need. The last thing I'll say is I sit at the, from my OACP hat, I sit on the policing pathways engagement tables for the ministry. 5 different tables. We had our final meeting the other day. The ministry is funding a recruitment strategy, essentially, or coming up with a strategy provincially, which will benefit us as well, because there are probably modifications and advances that should be done and probably should have been done many years ago. But the reality is we're in the place we are now. The challenges on recruiting are felt across the board. But again, when you have a great marketing strategy, this is part of MarCom, marketing and communication, and you tie that into an effective communication strategy and reduce the barriers for people onboarding people, we then are able to get our hands on people early on, get them into the organization, hire them early, and provide them the best training, which this board has been amazing at supporting over many, many years. The training we give our recruits is probably second to none. So I'll leave it there. It's a good news story, but it is something that has to be planned for. Cecile, added, because Cecile runs that area. So
Thank you, Chief. And really, so corporate development and professional development oversees uniform recruiting. So I always divide our recruiting and then our hiring into 2 different buckets. So because the outreach team is doing fantastic work, as the Chief's already highlighted, we are well above what we were sitting at last year at this time. So the recruiting is doing really great jobs of bringing them in the door to garner the interest. But the but is, if we're sitting at 500 now, the realities are there are likely around 10% that really will be the ones that make the cut. So how we've shifted, that's when it moves to the hiring phase, is looking at, although there's guidelines under the constable selection system and we have to follow certain rules and what enables somebody to continue in the process, we're looking at, we don't have to follow it sequentially. And that's typically how we always have done it. You do A, then B, then C. But if you have somebody that's there and they're just not meeting the bar in an area such as fitness, and I'm not saying the bottom, but they're close, we know that we can work with them and we can mentor them to get them there. So why pause on their application at that point if we know we're going to get them there? So we work with them. We run a lot of boot camps and things to get them up and ready so that they can continue on in the process. So that's a shift in how we've done business and how our screen outs are done. You know, we really review every screen out report at the command level. What was it that caused this individual to be screened out? And there are certain things that we have no choice but to screen them out. But there are other things that we can say, well, really, is this really a risk to the organization if we continue with this individual? So we've really pivoted on that. And I think that's where we've seen the success. We are front end loading. It's class to class to class, as the Chief has outlined. 40 per class is our goal. We've secured through the Ontario Police College those seats. It's just a matter of filling those seats. So instead of, what we'll do is we have even people coming in through partnerships with the colleges and the schools, but we've also partnered with a number of security. There's a lot of people that go through police foundations, the security agencies that They already have a police foundations diploma. It's not a requirement, but they already have it. They're working in security. So we've partnered with some of those businesses and it's actually been very successful. We've also partnered a lot with the Canadian Armed Forces. They're recruiting. So we've worked closely with Canadian Veteran Affairs and we've seen a lot of people from the military coming out. So we've seen some positives there. What I really think is exciting is we hired our first experienced officer class, the largest of its kind for the history of YRP. So we've done some marketing strategically to other police services, and we have a lot of people that live outside of the GTA per se, and they're driving into various sections of the city and are looking for a change. So we had a large class, and that really bolstered our numbers. So we're also targeting a specific outreach to experienced officers coming from the various services. They don't have to go through training. They're already recognized by the ministry, and they have 2 weeks with us, and they're on the road. So we had 17. We're going to have another. We're targeting hopefully 20, maybe even 25 for the fall. So that really helps fill the gap when we're waiting between classes at the Ontario Police College. So I'm really excited. We're optimistic. We're pushing pedal to the metal, all those resources that are required, even internally in terms of secondment and development opportunities for our members that are working in different areas of the organization. They can come in, we train them, they help support the recruiting initiatives and really get these files moving quickly. So we're pretty excited.
Thank you, Deputy. You're all good? Good. Sorry, Mr. Cartelucci, and then back to you, Mr.
Through you, Chair, I'm learning a bit to use that term. It's hard for me. It's nice to hear that York Regional takes only 7 minutes to respond. And our friends, 22, that's a lot. That's a big difference. But I can talk about a little bit the high-rise buildings. I can say that in 2 minutes walk of the lobbies, we have 5,000 people. 2 minutes walk. So that 7 minutes to me could be cut to nothing if it's on site. So you have 5,000 people living in that area with one officer. Of course, when you need to respond out, then they have to other with no cars. The saving is immense. Now, don't forget these units, they do have security too. If there is a police officer in 4 buildings, 5,000 people, that the cost, if you average, is nothing compared what they cost now, driving cars, boom, timing, 7 minutes, multiply that every time you have to go somewhere, you're talking about millions of dollars. If the police on this high-rise has to totally change and look at it different. I can't say, chief, what to do because I'm not a policeman, but this is what's there. And this is year. So you're looking at maybe 200,000 people going to Highway 7 in the next, and it is in a 5-minute kind of area. So we need to really look, I don't know what they do in New York, what they do in other places. We look at other places and see how they do it. That's just, because I go up and down this building every day almost. Not as much as I used to.
Yeah, Chair,
Thank
through
you.
you. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's exactly what we are doing is we're trying to plan appropriately for that and do research around the world, not just New York, but just the UK and there's other areas where they've stood up, policing stations in high density locations where we know we can learn from that and actually just make it that much better. As an example, can somebody touch base with a communications center using a QR code with their phone? Right? And then talk to a live person at the time. Like all of it has to be on the table because Otherwise, we're just gonna replicate what everybody else is doing and say, celebrate the big win. And the reality is we need to build off of that. And that's kind of the philosophy around how we're
Absolutely.
planning, right? Or how we're gonna plan. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll go to Jeff and then I have Counselor Jackson and Mr. Purchell.
Thank you, Chair. And just adding on, supplementing to the chief's comments, just as a reminder to the board that they've invested in 2024 with the Vaughan Metropolitan Center substation. So perhaps the deputy could give a comment on when that's opening, but it's a 2025 opening I'm aware of. And that will provide an on-site spot for officers to respond from on-site. It's on the north side of Highway 7, which does present some challenges to get to the south side as the south side is developed. But we are going to be on site with a substation starting next year.
Do you wish to?
Certainly. Thank you, Jeff, and you're bang on. We will be in there early Q1 2025.
Excellent. Thank you. Regional Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chairman. Okay, let me just drop my hand down. Okay, 2 points. I just
We
want to go
can't hear
back.
you, Linda.
Can you hear me now?
Okay,
A
Can
little
you hear
bit.
me? I haven't adjusted my volume.
there you go.
Oh, okay, very weird. No, your sound is going in and out as well, so I don't know whether it's a IT thing, because sometimes you guys are really quiet. Thank you, through you, Chairman. I just want to go back, Chief and Deputy Hammond, with respect to, I want to talk about this year. Now, you spoke about that there's 4 or 5 classes at OPC this year, and we are holding 40 spots in each class. Is that correct?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, that's correct. We've secured 40 per 4 times a year.
Okay, so do you have the funding if, for example, all sorts of wonderful young recruits fall out of the sky that we hired? Do we have enough funding to fill all those spots this year?
Yes, we absolutely do.
Perfect. Okay, that's number one. Because I was going to talk about a pre-budget, but I won't go there because I'm sure Jeff will probably be biting his nails if I start talking about that. So, okay, that was my own. I just, Chairman, as a point, I understand this ask is big, but I think we've been trying to play catch up for numerous years. As a member of Vaughan Council and just as a resident who's lived here since the 60s, people are starting to feel unsafe. I think if there's a time where we do a big hit, like a 1%, I don't think anyone would squabble about it, because if people don't feel safe and secure in their communities, either whether they're residents or businesses, what's the point? What's the point of us planning for future development, future growth, attracting businesses, going out and doing it if people feel unsafe? I know it's a big ask, and Chairman, you're very, Chairman Emerson is quite correct. I believe the bulk of regional council would be supportive of this. Now, there may be some that aren't, but that's fine. I mean, you don't need everybody to agree, but I think that going forward, we need to do that. But I guess my point with respect, I'm going to speak a little bit about the VMC, and I'm happy that you mentioned about the substation because I'm very aware of that. But we have to realize we need to get the developers and the landowners involved. I've spoken to quite a few of them. They're not interested in giving us space. They don't give a damn. Even like, they're too greedy. Pardon the expression, and Chairman, and no respect to Mr. Cortellucci, but they're too greedy. Like, we've been trying forever to maybe talk to them and say, hey, why don't you look at another space? I'm looking south of 7, east of Jane Street, some of the land's in there. Give us a space. They don't want to. So I don't know what we're going to do, but I really think, though, I think the point was made earlier about having YRP involved in the development process. I mean, we're expanding the Vaughan Metropolitan Center all the way out to Costa, which is literally the backyards. So it's really expanding, but I really think, though, that from a Vaughan perspective, I only can speak to Vaughan. We send, from a planning perspective, when we come in on an application, there's lots of external agencies that comment on planning applications. And I know York Region does, but I think that YRP should be part of that. I understand these planners and architects do use CPTED models, but I don't think it's a bad idea that that YRP, whether they'd have to turn it around pretty quickly, they couldn't sit on it, but at least have a look at it. I think that would be very helpful. through the chairman to the chief, I'm working on some major projects right now. And I think that it just involves the community, involves the police, and then you really know what's coming in, because I don't know whether you have any idea or your team as to what is being planned in the VMC, but it's enormous. Like, I'm working on a 68-story tower right now on the old Caterpillar lands. And there's 2 towers. The whole site is 7 towers. I'll leave it like that, but I'm happy to hear that we have enough money for this year. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Regional Councillor. Do you have a, no, you're, Anitra does.
Yes, Chair. So the chief and I, we have a lot of conversations about this, but also with a staff, particularly strategic services. So the first step, which you brought back in September, was about communications, which, you know, I'm happy to report we're on the agenda with OAPSB. So all boards as a block will move towards the province incorporating our communications recommendations and building code. The next part is to look from a policy perspective, because this has been done in other jurisdictions around the world, is when planning is done at the municipal level, that there is a provision in those municipal plans of subdivision and other community-based planning initiatives. In the same way we incorporate parks, schools, space for that, that there be space allocated for community safety servicing. I know this comes up at regional council a lot, where a number of members of council have mentioned that they've seen the model in Asia. I've lived that model. It's effective. So this is front-loading policy in favor of, you know, securing space for community safety and how that looks. So it could look like the substation in King, or it could look like VMC. You know, we would be able to say, okay, there's the park there. If, let's say, for example, Newmarket does, we're putting in a campus of 4 buildings, including a school, including a park, and we're going to set aside X number of square feet in this space for, you know, policing or community safety officers of some sort. So that's another policy piece we're examining. So the board staff together with strategic services are looking at that and how we may approach that.
Excellent, thank you. Mr. Purcell. Oh, sorry. You want to go first? Go ahead, Mr. Carlucci.
Every buildings we build, there's security offices. So there's already existing. In every building, we build their security office because they have already security, but they're not effective. That is the difference. If those offices would be used by a policeman, the effect of the office would take care of 5,000 people. It's simple. It's all there. Everything is there.
Well, it
We don't
looks
have
like-
to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, as they said, we all have to work together, and you got the tour of the substation in the municipal office. They have spots for weapons and other things. So it's not just one thing, it's all got to be planned out.
Yeah, and the reality is, you know, we don't need to answer the question today, but even in the planning, this to me is where you can use community support officers effectively, because we know the majority of calls, you know, for the most part, are lower priority calls. And then, you know, we're getting into violent crime. That's where the frontline officer kicks in, right? But there's a significant opportunity there with the use of community support special constable program. I'll just leave it at that, but there's lots of opportunity there for the future as we plan out.
Thanks, Chief. Mr. Pertram.
Just a quick question, Chief. Do they have, community support officers, do they have any form of armament?
Yeah, they have essentially everything except a taser and a firearm, right? So they have baton, they have oleocapsum or pepper spray, and so they have everything with the exception of what a frontline officer has, right? And they are equipped. They have a vest. They look police, but with a different uniform and a little bit less in the way of the tools on their belt.
The other issue, and this is directly towards you and the chief.
Just use your mic, Walter, so that.
Yeah,
Linda can
sorry.
hear you.
The other issue is the chronic problem of retention. There is an increasing mobility in younger persons out of policing, as well as coming into policing. And the real problem is the one that doesn't appear in that statistic. The real problem is it's not a 1-for-1. Bringing in a new police officer obviously feeds the beast. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't, and we went through this in the military, what it doesn't give you is experience and culture. And that needs to be accommodated in a budget too, because that just doesn't emerge. I mean, a guy that's been, or a woman that's been in policing for 15 years that for whatever reason decides to go elsewhere is not replaced by a first-year constable. And that is something that manifests in terms of the quality of policing and the perception of policing by the public. Because the person that's been there, done that, and got the T-shirt is got all that experience to back up those interactions and the nature of the satisfaction that comes from those interactions, vice somebody that is literally learning their trade. And again, without belaboring this, you know, in the military for the first 2 years, you're not allowed to do anything because you're dangerous. You don't know what you're doing, especially, you know, with obviously weapons, grenades, and all kinds of other things. The policing cycle is shorter than that, but the real question again is retention issues, and are they accommodated in the budget? Because retention is critical to the quality of the service.
Excellent. Go
I'll
ahead,
just,
Chief.
a quick answer on this is, you may remember about 2019, we embarked on this project breakthrough culture work. That's still evolving and still ongoing. And the new professionalism, leadership, and inclusion office, that is part of the big staffing, the overarching staffing plan, is to continue to build that office. That office really is addressing culture and policing. So it does a couple of things. It allows us to invest in our frontline officers and our professionals early on in their career on leadership development. It allows us to reduce incivility within the workspace, and it allows us people to work on themselves as individuals through a Mastery Academy program, amongst a whole host of other things. The point is, we invest in our people, we retain people, right? They see a culture that's inviting and inclusive, and all of that work, our EDI work, is all housed in there, and it's all part of the overarching staffing plan. So we know this culture piece is big, and it came up at the pathways tables, and there's nobody that I know has worked on culture like YRP in the last 5 years. Like, and I'm not taking credit for that. Happened before me. It was Eric Jolliffe and the team back then, and when we became deputies, myself and Bigra, right? So that's evolving and continuing, and that has to be part of the foot on the gas too. We got to continue to invest in our people. That's how you keep them, right? And create the work, the safe spaces for them to be.
Excellent. Jeff, you get the last word.
Thank you. And the budget is predicated on a retention cycle of 18 months, bringing a new recruit up at full speed. You'd mentioned 2 years, and very similar. And effectively what it looks like is there's a gap sometimes between when we have a person outgoing and when we have an OPC spot. From that OPC spot, the training that's required. So this is very dissimilar to whether it's nursing, whether it's teaching, where you have fully trained professionals plug and play into your system. And we've said that with the SolGen, and we've said that most recently with U of T. And there was a report out in the winter time from Melanie Seabrook and a U of T group of researchers. You may have read about it at Toronto Star. Quoted one of the researchers speaking about, well, we don't see a decrease in crime from an increase in staffing. We had Melanie in, and we had a great conversation. First of all, we want to first and foremost thank the U of T researchers. There was 9 researchers in total helping with research into police budgeting. And we did explain this very same thing, where an 18-month cycle is a better indicator of looking at it as to the effectiveness of onboarding staff. I hope that helps, sir.
Excellent. With that, Ms. McCullough, you'll move receipt of the presentation.
Yes.
All in favor? That carries. We have a closed session. The recommendations, I'm not sure if we need to go in, if people have read it. The board received that the executive director of financial report back to the finance committee on deliberations of confidential Do you need to go, do people need to go into closed session or are we good to just report back out? Anybody have any questions about it?
I'll move it, Mr. Chair. And the idea is, this is a work in progress, okay, which is a start going forward. So, yeah, that's, I think, good discussion this morning, more discussion next Thursday, and then, remind yourselves that the board meeting in June could be a little longer than normal. So judge yourself accordingly going forward, okay? But I'll move the recommendation, sir.
Thank you. Counselor Jackson.
Thank you. Just a quick question on procedure. So next Thursday's meeting, will Jeff's presentation about what the possible ask will be for 2025, 2026 be part of the presentation?
I'll leave
Through
that
to
up
the
to the
chief.
chief. Yeah.
So, it's not meant to be a budget presentation per se. I've been advised that it isn't the bigger discussion, but the chairman and I had a conversation this morning. And I think there's a need for us to at least, at the conclusion, sort of going back to yourself, Mr. Chair's comments on what we're doing about it, to say, we will be coming to regional council with a significant ask to address all of the issues we're talking about on May 30th without getting into what the number's going to be, what the staffing is going to be. We can talk about plans and we can talk about a larger budget ask and perhaps leave it there, subject to any input from this table. That's the intent.
Through the chair to the chief, I appreciate that, but politicians always have inquiring minds. If you said we're gonna come in with a big ask, they're gonna say how big. So I don't know. I mean, Jeff's was pretty full. I don't know whether you can knock that down, but if you say you're gonna come in with sorry, my printer's going off. If you say that it's going to be bigger next year, I think they're gonna ask by how much. I don't know, but I'll leave it like that. I'll leave it up to you, but I think that maybe be prepared or something, but they're gonna ask.
I'm sorry, I apologize for cutting you off. I made a note of that earlier on about adding this piece to the presentation next week.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
So yeah, we'll have to figure out what we're actually going to say about it and what we're
Yeah,
comfortable saying at this point. And I guess Anitra will have to figure it out.
exactly. Yeah, no, it's fine. I just think that we have to be prepared because a lot are gonna say, if you say, chief, if you say, oh, we're gonna be asking for a bigger ask, they're gonna say, how big? Like.
Sure, I know, I get it.
Okay, thank you. I'm fine.
Thank you. So I'm not sure. You moved it. All in favor? That carries. I'll look for adjournment, but I'll also, and I'm going to say it now because Regional Councillor Jackson brought it up. I also spoke to the treasurer and I also said, just because you're asking for more doesn't mean it's a plus. The region can look within as well in terms of their hiring process to see if there's, we hired a lot of paramedics and a bunch last time. Maybe it's this time we focus more on police. So it doesn't have to be a plus. It can be within the envelope. Just let's move it around. But with that, I'll ask Ms. Bodenstein to move adjournment. All in favor? That carries. Thank you.